and good evening, everyone. I am Sayitrisha from the Guindy Times, and this is the University Admit Series. The University Admit Series is an initiative taken by the Guindy Times to provide insightful information to students about the processes associated with applying to higher education programs, both in India and abroad. Today, we have with us Mr. Palaniappan Chellapan, an industrial and operations engineering graduate from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. Mr. Palaniappan has completed his bachelor's in the field of industrial engineering from College of Engineering, Guindy, Anna University, and pursued his master's in the same field. Today, he has gratefully agreed to talk to us to provide some insightful information into the whole process of applying abroad for higher education. Hello, Mr. Palaniappan, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, hi, Sayitrisha, and hello to everyone watching this.
So let's get right to it. Industrial engineering is not a very common engineering course that's heard of in India, especially for an undergraduate degree. So how did you get to know about this course, and which area of interest truly, drew you to this course?
Okay, so I'm going to be plain and honest here. Like, no one joins industrial engineering knowing what it is. I came to CEG looking for a mechanical degree, and I was not fortunate to get that, and I ended up with industrial engineering. That's the true story right there. So no one knows what you want to do when you start your bachelor's. Like, it's undeclared bachelor's in most places, so we don't have that in India, but like that's pretty much how I got into industrial engineering. It was similar to mechanical, that's how I came in, but I found my passion in operations research there, and that's pretty much what I've been doing so far. But yeah, it's kind of an accident that ended up well.
That's good. Okay. So at which point during your undergraduate years did you decide that you wanted to continue your education further? And were there like any sources of inspiration that sort of pushed you to reach that decision, like professors or mentors or some people, someone like that?
Yeah. So like somewhere in the second year, like I encountered this subject called operations research that I started liking. And when I started looking around, okay, I want a career in this. What do I need to have a career in this? So like you said, industrial engineering itself is a very specific bachelor's, and it won't be enough for me to get into a career in operations research. So that was pretty much the first motivation. I needed a master's and a postgraduate degree to get into OR, and that like started the search. And I also had like a very interesting professor from mathematics, like Professor Arivudainambi. He's still there, and he's a director of a center. I forgot his name, but yeah. So he worked a lot in operations research too. He handled a math course for me. Like interactions with him also helped a lot. And like, not to mention Professor Shahabuddin from our department, he was pretty great too. Like I was pretty close with him, and he helped a lot there. And Dr. Paul Robert, who's like still in our department, like those are the people who helped me a lot in the process. But it's more of a need-based thing. So for me, like I wanted a career in this. What do I need to have a career in this? The answer was masters.
Right. And when you decided to apply to universities, what was the criteria that you were looking for?
Okay, so I just wanted to learn more about this field, and my first criteria was like, okay, what is their coursework? Do they have a lot of courses in this field or not? That's pretty much the first criteria I would look at, and that's what I started with. Like these are the things I wanted to learn, like different parts of this field. And the universities that had them were in the first list I created. Next, so for me, my master's, I didn't learn much from coursework. Actually, it ended up like that. So most of my learning was from labs, like in the universities. So like they would also be a very important criteria in my decision making. For example, in my time in Michigan, I spent 6 months in a healthcare lab doing operations research, and 6 months in an infrastructure optimization lab, like working on railroads, shipping yards, things like that. So they helped me a lot to learn more and proceed in my career. Like the labs and the coursework pretty much decided, since it's a master's, But if someone's looking for a PhD, like it's an even more tedious process. And I don't know much about like what you look into a PhD, but the research areas of professors might come into play. But these are the two criteria for me. And location also matters to some extent. You want to be in a place where there is job opportunities around. So those are the three things you want to take into consideration.
And when you decide that you have to go abroad, there are certain exams that you need to write to get into certain universities. Could you elaborate on the sort of preparation it took, which exam you had to write and the sort of preparation it took?
Sure. So like masters need not only be abroad, say it can also be in India. There are also like great places. So if you decide in India, it's going to be the gate. That's pretty much your gateway through it. But now coming back to our abroad scenario, like, so I did the GRE and TOEFL. Those were pretty much the requirements across all my universities. And when I started the GRE, like, what, pretty much in my third year, that's where I started thinking about the GRE. So the GRE has like two portions, like most of the people should know. It's like the English and the math. So each one has their strong area, like, and there is a weak area for everyone. In my case, it was the English. That's pretty much where I spent all my time. And math was slightly taken for granted. It was like, okay, I know I can do this, and English is where I need to fill in the gap. So like that was the first thing you need to identify, like what is good, what are the things you can do good at, and what are the things you're not good at. So that will be the first step. And I spent like 6 to 8 months on the English, and maybe like a couple of months around the math, and that was my GRE prep. And the GRE English pretty much prepares you for the TOEFL English. So it's kind of like you get 2 for 1. Yeah, so those were pretty much the exams I took. And yeah.
Could you, I mean, if it's okay with you, would you tell us your GRE split up?
So I got a 320 with a 169 in math and 151 in English. So that's pretty much what I targeted for. I knew I could get the 170-ish in math, and this is what I needed in English to get to a 320, which is kind of considered your like a good score. Like you need a 320, you're out of the way. The split can be different for everyone. That's what I meant to, like, you might get a 170 in English and 150 in math. That's totally fine. But working out your split is what very important.
Right. And could you talk to us about the timeline which you followed for this application process? Like from which year did you start in your UG and how did it go?
So, it's kind of like a 1.5 year process. That's what I'd say. So somewhere in third year, you have to start, okay, am I going to do a master's? Like you have to answer that question somewhere in your third year. And after that, I would start by looking at universities and their requirements. So for me, this was the beginning of the even semester. So somewhere in January of 2016, if I'm correct. That's the January of 2015, I'm sorry. So that was my timeline. So I started looking at universities. What did they need? What are the exams required? Like you do a complete analysis. And then pretty much I just went into this test preparation. For the next 6 to 12 months, it was only test preparation for me. So I would get all my exams done by the October of my final year, which is October of 2016. So you start around Jan 15 thinking about it and get your exams done by October of 2016, where you have 6 months left to graduate and also apply. So once you have your exams, the next is to write this statement of purpose. You need a lot of time to write that, like 2 to 3 months. Like in my case, my earliest university deadline was December 15th, but they vary anywhere in December to Feb and sometimes in March too. So I would suggest like get all your exams done in October and then start thinking about your SOP and have something solid by end of December, and then get everything done by the new year so that you're done and you can relax for the next 6 months just waiting for results. One more important thing I really didn't do well in my process was like approaching people for LOR. So you have to be very early. That's one thing I realized. Professors are busy and they don't like give out more than 3 or 4 LORs, like especially like professors in higher rank. So the first thing you would do at the beginning of your final year is to find the people who are going to give you the LORs. I was a little late. So yeah, I have to somehow rush it in, and like I was thankful, like a lot of people helped me through it. But that's the first thing pretty much you have to do. Like we are a huge college, and so you have to rush it in. So what else? Of course, you have to plan your finances. Like I'm pretty sure we're not going to talk about the finances here, but still, like you have to think through like how you're going to pay for it, or you also have to factor in universities that give you scholarship and those who don't. So like thinking about those, and usually the competition will be stiffer for the universities that give you scholarship. So like that's also an important factor, and your financial situation will play a huge role on how you make that decision. But pretty much that's it. And you have to be prepared for this long waiting process. Yeah, my one and only admit came like 2 weeks before the end of the college.
Wow.
So you have to be prepared.
Okay. And could you tell us, like, what are these universities expecting? You know, what kind of characteristics are they expecting from these undergraduates that they're picking from, to the best of your knowledge? Like, what do they look for in a candidate?
Okay. This is the most complex multi-criteria decision making out there. It's like no one knows the exact formula to crack it. It's the most important factor, according to me, is that year's candidate pool, like who's applying to the university you're applying for. I've seen universities where I got rejected, my juniors got in. Places where I got in, but my juniors didn't. But we had very similar profiles, and like there was no answer to it. But that's an uncontrollable, like keeping it aside. Other things would be like, I would not underplay the GPA thing. You need a GPA. So you don't need too much of it, but you need a good amount. Like 8.5 would be a good point to like have. And anything below that, you might still get in if you have an extraordinary research profile that surrounds it. But I would say like a good number would be 8.5. And after that, I know like extracurricular activities are really like they help you in the process too. But for me, it was the co-curricular activities. So let's say if you're pursuing electronics in College of Engineering, time at the Robotics Club of CEG is definitely going to boost your application. And there are also a lot of labs in the electronics department, like being a member of that will help you. So those co-curricular activities will definitely give you an edge. You have to accumulate those, and you have to pretty much, that's not going to happen overnight. You have to start this end of first year, I would say. You have to get in somewhere at the end of your first year, and that will slowly build up. And these research internships, there are a lot of opportunities in Germany through the DAD program or the SN BOS for USA. There are opportunities in Canada, and even like India has so many places. So IIT Madras has the summer internship programs. All these hands-on research experiences will be a plus. So what you want to develop is a holistic profile where you have an academic profile, you have an extracurricular profile, and you have something co-curricular that is directly leading to your domain where you want to work. Once again, if you want to pursue a master's in robotics and you've not at all been in the robotics club of CEG, I don't know, like so things like that should they will add up. It's not just one point, all these things summing up together and giving you a weight. And let me think, what else? And of course, research work that can be published. If you have a publication, you have a serious chance of getting into good places. And another thing I saw was the letter of recommendations. there are two directions you can go with LORs. One, a fancy professor, but he gives you like a standard LOR. He tells you like he's a great guy, he or she is wonderful, they have this GPA. Like that doesn't tell you anything about the guy. It's a standard template out there. I would prefer the second option that I'm going to say in comparison to this, like an LOR that can point out to things you did, like someone who can like pinpoint things you exactly did, what you worked with him or her. Like a personal touch in an LOR will also like play a huge role. I would really go for professors that you've worked with or like internship managers that you've worked with. Those can pinpoint things. Yeah. That's pretty much it. Your LOR, your research work, your extra and co-curricular activities, and your GPA, they should add up. And you need the test scores, the bare minimum test scores. 100 in TOEFL, a 320 in GRE.
According to your profile, you attended a research internship in Germany. Now, could you tell us whether it had any impact in terms of which course you wanted to specialize in? Did that research internship have any, advantage towards, you getting an admit in Michigan?
Yeah, sure. So I did talk about this briefly when I was mentioning all the research opportunities. So I was a DAD Weiss scholar, like interning at the University of Duisburg, Essen. So DAD is an organization in Germany that invites students from all around the world. It's DAAD, like 2 A's. So if someone wants to Google it. And this was in the summer of 2016. So I would thank Professor Paul Robert for like helping me get through this. Like he was very much responsible for this. So I worked on scheduling problems. I really picked up scheduling as my area in this internship. It just gave me some direction. So I work on combinatorial optimization, and applying it to scheduling there, like pretty much gave me a direction. And I did a lot of scheduling work after that, like in masters, in my job, and that kind of became my first skill, like by working on scheduling problems. And it just gives you an exposure, like a different country, how they work, like those really help. And another thing is you get a different LOR. So I had an LOR from my professor back then. So it just diversifies your profile a little. That would have definitely helped me get through this University of Michigan's admit process. Like those are pretty much for the admit. But one thing that should not be underplayed is like it prepares you for your master's life. Like you'll spend 2 months in a different country all by yourself, and that will also mentally prepare you. And like that's a good trailer to what's coming.
And finally, what advice would you like to give to the current students who are either contemplating getting a master's degree but are unsure about where to start, or just students in general who are unsure about which path they should choose? Do you have any advice for them?
Okay. So for me, pretty much the question is, what do you want to do? Like after your bachelor's? Like I wanted to do operations research. That was the answer to my question if you would have asked me 6 years, 5 years ago. So like that's the question you first have to answer. Like, what do I want to do? And the next step would be like, okay, to get to this place, what do I need? Like, is it enough? Like whatever I have now is enough or not? If not, like sometimes the answer would be, yeah, you need a master's to get here. Like then is when you think about, okay, how do I get this master's and go about? I'm not a big fan of like just pursuing a master's for the sake of it. Like really, like it should be in the path to get you somewhere. Like if not, I would really say like there is no need to pursue a master's. Like pretty much the answer to the question on what do I want to do after the 4 years. And it's just do what you like. Most people like it's fine to end up with like, okay, I don't even want to do engineering after the 4 years. Like it's totally fine. If that's the case, like just go for what you like, and that will pretty much like take care of you.
Thank you. Thank you for this. That's all the questions we have from us. Once again, thank you on behalf of the Guindy Times for agreeing to do this interview. I'm sure it will help a lot of students who are still looking for a good path or a guide towards this process. So thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, like for giving back to my university. And like Guindy Times has been doing a great job. I've been following for since I've graduated. Like just keep it up, and all the best to everyone pursuing masters and other higher education.
Thank you. Thank you.